Greetings to those who watch below. Before I start today's video, I'd like to say a massive thank you to Jess Black Curtain, Lefty Kim, Steffi Ray, Lisa Watts, and Wicked Witch for being those who dwell below, an exclusive channel membership that will get you shout-outs at the start of every video. So, today's stories are a little bit different. With most of our paranormal stories, they're to do with haunted places or people. Today's stories are haunted objects. So sit back, relax, and enjoy. Dead Battery by sunsetsister. We have recently been tasked with moving house. At the moment we're right in the middle of building our own home, and unfortunately, though we are weeks off finishing, we have been told our lease won't be continuing and have to move in 20 days. We put up an ad on Facebook for a short-term rental and have been lucky enough to find a house with a secure yard for the dogs, enough room for us, and close to my son's new school, where he starts next week. So, first things first. We hired a skip bin. We have far too many things, and we could almost downsize by half. What can be sold or donated has been set aside, and the rest will go in the bin. The skip bin arrives, and with it, something else. Over the next 2 days we fill it to the brim. We're too busy during the day to notice anything off. At night, things don't feel right. I tell my partner I keep seeing things out the corner of my eye. Look around and there's nothing there. My partner works fly in, fly out, on a 2 weeks away, 1 week home roster. He flies back to site. That night I walk out the front door to put the garbage bins out. I have a rubbish bag in my hand. It is dusk, the sun has gone down, but there is still some twilight. As I open the door, I fleetingly see a dark shadow crouching by the skip bin. I look down to tie the bag, process what I've seen, and look back up. It stands up, walks 2 steps, and vanishes. I stop walking. The streetlight is on. It sits to the left of the skip bin. Weird. I'm a little freaked out but put the bins out and go back inside. Later that night while watching a movie, out of the corner of my eye, I see something walk past the theatre room window. Look around, and there's nothing there. The dogs begin to get agitated outside, running up and down the yard growling. This is very uncharacteristic for them. One of them never barks, and the other is a good guard dog, but mostly a big goofball. The dogs are freaking me out more than anything else. I bring them inside. They are my safety net when my partner isn't home. They will not leave the front of the house alone, watching out the windows and looking at the skip. All night they were agitated. I didn't get much sleep. A few days go by. I'm at work during the day, and aside from the dogs being agitated at night, I notice nothing else. Saturday comes and I decide to take a trailer load of stuff over to the new house when I pick up the keys later. I pull the SUV out and hitch it up to the trailer. I pull it out from the backyard and back it into the driveway. I get it in on the first go. I'm so chuffed with myself that I back the trailer in and on the first go. I load it up, tie it down, lock the cage and I'm ready to go. Get in and flat battery. What? It was fine. It's a 6-month-old battery. It's not cold, middle of summer, nothing left on, no reason for it to go dead. No worries, we have a battery charger. I hook it up and let it charge. 30 minutes later I'm on the road. I park the trailer and then back the SUV into the driveway so I can jump it with my car if I have any more trouble. Sunday my mum and sister are over to help me pack and do some cleaning. We spend the day doing just that. Then they have to go home. My mum goes to start her car in the driveway and flat battery. Totally dead. I get my car out of the garage and jumpstart her car. We talk about how weird this is and can't work it out. My sister gets in her car and flat battery. What the heck is going on here? I walk over to the SUV, whose battery was perfect that morning when I started it. Flat battery. We now have 3 out of the 4 cars at my home with dead batteries. I'm at a total loss to comprehend this. I jumpstart my sister's car from my car and she is good to go. My mum leaves and I begin to back out from my spot, directly facing my sister's car. I'm watching her as she begins to back out. She's looking in the mirror and suddenly smashes into the lamppost. I hear glass fall from the lamp to the road. It is difficult to explain how this happened. The look of shock on her face and the fact that she backed into the lamppost as if it simply wasn't there. I was watching her. I could see out her back window. The lamp couldn't be seen, yet it hit dead in the centre of her bumper. Totally shocked, we both get out of our cars, run to the back of hers, and no damage. Not even a scratch. It was a hard hit. You heard the smash and crunch, but no damage. I looked at the lamp, dreading the amount of damage that it must have. Not a scratch. There's no glass on the road. Nothing shattered onto the road, and yet we both clearly heard it. My mum's battery was dead after she parked it at home. She got another battery installed. We had to replace the battery in the SUV as the life was sucked out of it. All were batteries less than a year old that went dead. A few mornings later, I wake up with the indescribable feeling that I was watched all night. I went to a little shop in town and bought some white sage and smudged the place. I felt better, but it did nothing. First time doing it, maybe I just didn't do it with enough conviction. I have to replace the bulbs in the bedside lamps because they keep flickering. Once I change them, they seem fine. One evening the dogs are so freaked out that I am starting to get very nervous. They typically tag team when on alert at night. They sleep in the bedroom with us. We have a border collie and a dingo cross kelpie. The border collie has a big bark and will go off when he hears something. The dingo usually comes and sits with me on the bed, as if guarding me while the border collie sorts out business. The border collie goes off his nut barking and whining, then starts growling. His hair stands up and he begins to bare his teeth. The dingo gets up on the bed with me and whines. Her hair is standing up and she is baring her teeth too. They're both looking at a spot in the corner of the room. I've bought white sage essential oil and made up a spray bottle of it. I go nuts around the room with it and it seems to calm things down. For a little while. The dogs go berserk a little later that evening. The skip bin was picked up a few nights later. It made no difference. My partner flew back from site and we moved a few days later. I'm happy to say that whatever was there did not come with us. Grandpa's Camera by Spirit Waiting. Lately, some small odd things have been going on in my home. Little things that I hadn't started paying attention to would go by unnoticed. As of late, because of the cold wet weather, I've been keeping our furry baby in the lounge room. It's his bedroom nowadays. On the very end of the room is a large walk-in closet where I keep all my poetry, kids' art projects, and some of my Grandpa Sonny's things. These are the things I was allowed to take from his home when we cleaned it out after he passed. One of the objects was a camera that still had the film in it. I put it in a box at the back of the closet. One morning I woke up, started my usual routine, start the coffee, let the dog out, smoke a cigarette, and take a shower. I started the coffee and went downstairs. When I let Tucker out, I saw the camera just sitting on the weight bench. I thought it was weird to be sitting out like that, but it was early, and I put it up. I go back upstairs and the coffee hadn't started off right, so coffee grinds are all over the pot, counter and floor. I cleaned it up and made more. Off to work I went. A couple of days later, same routine, and again the camera is sitting on the floor just outside the closet. I thought maybe my dog Tuck is getting the camera out of the closet, but how? The doors are shut. So I opened the doors up and set it on top of some shirts on the highest shelf. I'm thinking, if it's him, I know he can't reach it here, and continue on with my routine and go off to work. The same night, Tuck started to whine at the door, so I let him out to pee, but he has no need to go. I let him back in. I go upstairs and shut the door, leaving him there. He starts to whine at the door again. I go down there to sit with him, and the closet doors are open. I go to close them, and usually he is walking with his body touching my legs, but this time he stayed at the door and watched me from afar. I close the closet and walk back and open the door, and he flies out so fast that I couldn't catch him. I finally caught him and put him in the room with the kids where he slept that night. The next morning I start my routine and forget he was in the kids' room. I go downstairs to let him out and realise he's not in there, and see the closet doors are open and the camera is sitting on the side of the weight bench, on the floor, and the film has been partially torn out from the camera and torn right in the middle. I pick it up, wrap it up, and put it back in the closet, disappointed I wouldn't be able to get that developed eventually. It all started with a possessed table, by Star 347. When I was in 6th grade, I was invited by one of the popular girls to her slumber party for her birthday. I was very excited to go, because it was my first year at a private Catholic school, and I was still trying to make friends. Everyone was looking forward to one girl coming in particular, because she was bringing her special table to the party. They said this table could answer your questions, but I've always been sceptical by nature, so I was doubtful, but I just rolled with it. The night of the party, the girl, who we'll call April, arrived with her table. It wasn't anything spectacular, just an old fold-up square card table that had belonged to her grandma. It had a vinyl covering on the top that had a wooden grain pattern, with a large diamond shape and a different pattern of wood grain, and yet another wood grain pattern inside of that. After the usual eating of pizza and watching of movies, we went upstairs to the birthday girl's room, where April set up her table. Everyone gathered around it, and they explained to me that you had to close your eyes and concentrate, while lightly resting 2 fingers on top of the table, and repeating with everyone in unison, "Rise table, rise table, rise," over and over. Obviously I didn't take it seriously, and giggled through it, while everyone else was serious. And then, the table rose up on 2 legs, and just hovered there. The 2 legs had to be at least 12 inches off the ground. I was obviously stunned. When I opened my eyes and looked for a possible explanation as to how this was possible, there was none. As long as we kept our index and middle fingers lightly on the top, it stayed like that. The girls started to ask the table random questions, and if the answer was a yes, it would lower the side that was raised up and almost touch the ground, and go back up and wait until the next question. If the answer was a no, it wouldn't lower, and would just stay raised up. Of course, we asked stupid questions, but the thing that really struck me was when they tried to guess which boy I liked. And I can tell you that nobody knew who I liked, as I was the new girl in school and kept it to myself. And as they guessed different boys, the table did not indicate a yes answer, until they finally got around to asking if I liked the boy I actually had a crush on. How did it know? No one knew, and trust me, I was discreet about it. Things took a darker turn after a while, and we tried to ascertain the origin of whatever was actually communicating with us. It felt like it was sucking us in deeper and deeper. We were tired and tried to say goodbye to it, but it wouldn't let us, and seemed to get very angry because it started to move up and down violently when answering a yes to our questions. The girl, April, had told us the one rule was that you couldn't just take your hands off of the table. You had to say goodbye properly and release it. Through asking yes or no questions, it said that it was a young child who still slept in a crib. Red flag. How could a child that young understand any of our questions really? He was smothered in aforesaid crib in the 1800s in England, and he wanted us to travel there to find its bones and bury it properly. Somebody asked it eventually if it knew who Jesus was, and it gave an answer of no. And then when someone took a Precious Moments crucifix off the wall and set it on the table, it shook violently to knock it on the floor. And that was pretty much enough for me at that point. Of course, I couldn't sleep later, and I was still scared even when I went home the next day. As an adult in my 30s now, firmly rooted in logic and reason, when I look back I have more questions than answers. All I can say for certain is this did happen, as I explained. It was no illusion, and nothing that the 10 of us collectively imagined that we were experiencing. I believe it was something very sinister that tried to suck in a bunch of little girls by pretending it was a child. Who knows what it wanted? More than anything for me, this first experience opened a door for me to have many other ones. Can a Painting Be Haunted? By InTheTARDIS. My parents imported and exported antiques and fine wines for many years. Now it's just antiques. My mother Natasha is Russian-born, but grew up in the USA from the age of 3, and always had the love of anything old and unusual when it came to furniture and artwork, something that seems to have rubbed off on me a little. My parents would regularly go to auctions and estate sales and the like to purchase interesting pieces for their business. It was rare that anything purchased at these sales ever made it home to become part of our house, unless it was out of the ordinary or my parents liked it too much to part with it. My childhood home looked like a cross between a madman's idea of a yard sale and an antiques market belonging to an insane hoarder, but it made for good, fun and interesting conversation, and many a good thought. None of the furniture or artworks previous had bothered me as far as I can remember, until my mother purchased a painting by an unknown artist. All we know is that the family who put it in the auction bought the home they had found it in, and didn't like the painting or several pieces of furniture that the last owners had left behind. So, off to the sales they went. It was a rather large lot at over 50 items. My mother purchased the painting, and a sideboard full of silverware and plates of varying ages locked inside. The painting is of a woman of about 30 years old, wearing a long blue-grey gown, standing in the veranda of an old house. Next to her is a table with a tea set and kettle, and what looks like some cake or sandwiches on a plate. There are some flowers and a chair and part of a window. Whoever did the painting had a lot of talent, as the detail is incredible. It was probably painted around 1900 to 1910, judging by the fashion she's wearing. My mother brought it home, and we hung it in the hallway next to my parents' bedroom, between the main bathroom and a little room my dad used to do his paperwork in. I felt very strange around the painting from the first day it was hung up. The hallway in summer was comfortable and not too warm, but after the painting was hung, the area around the painting turned almost ice cold. Passing the painting, I'd get goosebumps on whatever exposed skin I had. I also started feeling like the lady in the painting was watching me. My twin sisters started saying they didn't like looking at the painting, as it made them feel uncomfortable, and like they weren't meant to be around it. My baby brother would walk on the other side of the hallway to it, and when asked why, he'd say he didn't like the lady, and that he was cold when he looked at her. Soon it went past just feelings in the hallway. At night we'd start hearing whispers that hadn't been there previously. Our house already had its share of spooky behaviour that we had gotten used to, but this was new. Movement of a flash of blue-grey like the dress out the corner of your eye. A strange touch occasionally in the hallway when no one else is around. This may sound like something from Tales of the Crypt, but I assure you this isn't something I saw on TV. I only wish sometimes it was. After my father got a cold hand run up his back when he was in the shower, was any of this given any real notice by our parents? Used to other ghosts in the house, we at first thought, oh, it's just another spirit making itself known to us, as it's new here. But then things got bad. Fast. My baby brother, let's call him Adam, was tripped on the stairs and pushed by a cold hand when he tried to get up again. The big fern we had in the hall next to the painting suddenly started dying. It was over 20 years old and had no previous problems. When moved away from the painting, it went back to being fine. It's still alive today, but one side of it looks a little mangled. The side facing the painting never was the same. The branches grew back weird, like something had infected them. It was checked out and tested by a plant specialist, and they couldn't find anything wrong with the old plant. Our dogs, Frankie and Dex, wouldn't go past the painting without whining or growling at it. They're usually very placid and gentle dogs. Our aunt's dog Lula had to be carried past it when we used to dog sit her. She wouldn't walk past it or even look at it. Our cats tried to claw at it one time when it fell off its hooks onto the ground. Our normally placid Maine Coon cats Sally and Meg both went nuts trying to scratch it until we took it away. It started coming off the hook every night, and sat against the wall upright every morning when no one touched it. My mother was a very spiritual person, who put up with our friendly spirits in the house with a grain of salt, as they didn't bother her. She decided that this painting had to go, and something was wrong with it, to which we all agreed. So off to the auctions it went, several times. My mother, who knew the buyers, found out they only kept it a month. They too heard whispers, and their cat also attacked the painting, and gave it to a neighbour who liked it. The neighbour sold it on after her dog freaked out around it. It kept getting sold on or auctioned or given away until 2014, when a man who collected art in Florida bought the painting and did not know of its history. Having again tried to research its past, he found out it was possibly a painting of an artist's wife who died young. I don't know if it's true or not. There's no real record of the artwork anywhere, and it's not signed. The man who owned it last, I heard, keeps it in his basement, as it frightened his grandchildren. He says he won't sell it on, and keeps it locked up. I think, too, that he knows something isn't right with it. I'm worried as he's old, and what's going to happen when he dies. I don't think this painting is safe. Either a ghost is in it or attached to it, and it's not friendly. So please, if any one of you see this painting, it should really be destroyed. I know all this probably sounds like a made-up story for kids, and an adult man like myself shouldn't be wary of an old oil painting of someone unknown. This painting is dangerous. Please destroy it if you buy it. It's really not worth the trouble. The Weird Vase from the Estate Sale by Mandee. My Aunt Lily had a passion for flea markets, yard sales, and especially estate sales. But let me tell you, one time she brought something home she didn't expect. She bought a cardboard box from an estate auction full of odds and ends, and she found a strange-looking vase in it. It was ugly, maybe a foot tall, and it wasn't painted exactly. It kind of appeared to be stained a brownish colour like homemade dye. It had 2 small handles on each side, and is very unfinished. Its texture is rough, and it still has marks from a pottery wheel on the bottom, so it's obviously homemade. So she placed her find in a glass curio cabinet, along with her collection of other vases. But when my uncle sat at his computer desk, his back was facing squarely towards the cabinet. He got to the point where he hated that vase, because he swore he could feel it looking at him, and he stayed covered in goosebumps while doing his online work. He finally put his foot down, and the vase travelled to my Aunt Shay's house up the road. Well, it didn't live there much longer, because her son, a toddler at the time, was terrified of it, but was too young to explain exactly why. Next it was sent to my parents' house, until my dad threatened to smash it, because his beloved Yorkie howled when the vase was brought near to him. So I was chosen as the next owner of that monstrosity of a vase. I put it in the living room foyer beside the front door, on one of those triangular shelves that are made to fit into corners. Well, now my dog is being terrorised. He never goes to the front door to ask to go out anymore. He chooses another door, no matter how bad he has to go. I was watching him once while he was tossing one of his toys up in the air, and it landed dangerously close to the monster in the corner. I told him to go get it, and he crept slowly sideways towards it, never taking his eyes off that vase, then snatched his toy and darted away with his tail between his legs. This was enough to get my aunt interested in finding out as much as possible about where it came from and so on. Turns out, this vase was an urn for human ashes. Now that we knew that and took a closer look, down inside the neck of it are distinct marks from where a cork had been in place. Of course it's empty now, and we have no idea who it was and where those ashes are. Fast forward a few years, and I still own the vase. It sits in the same spot I first placed it in. No one likes it, and my dog is still wary of it, but I refuse to get rid of it, because my aunt that found it so fascinating passed away not long after from breast cancer. I can't bring myself to get rid of something she gave me, and besides, it's never bothered me a bit, so it continues to reside in its corner. Hi guys, thank you so much for listening to today's video. I never realised until I read through those stories out loud that pretty much everyone has got an animal that reacts to the object, though they do say that animals see more than us humans do. Could they be seeing the ghosts that are attached to those objects? If you enjoyed the video, make sure to like, share and also subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, making sure to hit that notification bell so you'll know when the next video goes live. So, until next time, sleep tight.